Welcome back to Hardball. Who's going to decide this year's presidential election? It's a pretty fundamental question. But according to the latest NBC Wall Street Journal poll, while many people have made up their minds, frankly, everybody has done that and is firmly committed to either Barack Obama or Governor Romney, there's a small group of voters out there who say they're unsure or unimpressed with either of the candidates. As Peter Hart, one of the top pollsters, summed it up, never has so much money been spent by so many to persuade so few. And we're talking about a handful of voters there, basically. What do we know about these people in the very political middle? Well, they overwhelmingly think the country's headed in the wrong direction. And yet, while their views of Obama are mostly negative, Mitt Romney scores much worse. Could it be that the Bain attacks are working, or that they're on target at least? Well, people who are so disaffected by the state of the country want to vote for someone who's worth $250 million and who's made his fortune by firing people. Chuck Todd's an NBC News political director and chief White House correspondent, and Chris Cillizza is managing editor of PostPolitics.com and an MSNBC political analyst. You know, I think this is just fascinating, Chuck. I know you've been talking about this with some others, our producers, and this small group of hardcore people who I almost think of them as Ross Perot people. They don't like the way people run this government. They don't like people, maybe, in general. They've had a hard life. But they really don't like the cut of the jib of Mitt Romney at all either.
Let me explain what we did. These are, every month we have this 7 to 10% that's undecided. And so what we did is we pooled all of the undecided from about 3 or 4 straight polls so that you get a larger number of folks so you can figure out who they are. Well, boy, did we figure out who they are. They're, as you pointed out, they're very negative on the president, very negative on Mitt Romney. But here's the person that they're not negative on. That's Ron Paul. And so when you described them as Perot types, that's exactly what these are the no BS voters, the sort of burned out on the BS. Yeah. They don't want to tinker with Washington around the edges. They want to massively demolish this place. And that's what you see in here. They think the country's more on the wrong track than the rest. They think the president's doing a worse job than the rest. They have a worse view of Mitt Romney's image. So it's this whole thing. These folks, though, Mitt Romney, I would argue, may need them more. These folks strike me as people that may not vote. And that's what should be the scary thing if you're Mitt Romney. He needs them more than Obama.
Now, let me ask you this. Who do they hate more? Who do they mistrust more? The government bureaucrat with the classic attaché case with the peanut butter sandwich inside that Wallace used to talk about coming to bother them? Or do they mistrust the big shot efficiency expert from the corporate guy that comes in and takes over their company, cans guys like them, and makes more money for the people who've invested? Who do they hate more, if you put it that way?
That's a good question, and I think that you could, if you answer that question, then you would find out where these undecideds would move. I mean, I think that is the Hobson's choice for these people, if you will, frankly, Chris, because they don't like the way they feel government intrudes on them. They don't like a lot of those things, but they don't, as you pointed out, they mistrust. Maybe they've been, I've always half-joked, a lot of your typical Ron Paul supporter is a highly educated IT type of guy, and they don't trust the CEOs and anybody with a title of COO, CFO, or CEO either.
I think I know some of these guys. Well, here are some interesting numbers in terms of people who say